having me, Fun. And it's nice to see lots of folks who I actually know and some names that I recognize. So thank you for being here today. My name is Julie Marzouk. I am an attorney and have worked exclusively in the last few years on fighting anti-Semitism. But my longer term background was an immigration attorney, and then I served full time as a law professor teaching immigration, and my specialty was really in representing victims of gender-based violence that were fleeing their countries of origin. And I have my own consulting practice, Marzouk Evolve Advocacy Consulting, and I am very happy to be here today. I testified in the Senate a couple of weeks ago, and I'm happy to talk about that and hope to link it to the broader issues that we all care about.
Amazing. So we know each other from the Protect Your City project. You were one of the first people that we met that professionally engaged in city halls. And how was going from City Hall to the Senate? Like this entire situation, how did it came about? Even just start from wherever you want to start. Everything is interesting.
Sure, sure. So, yes, I was very involved in fighting anti-Semitism in local city councils I live in California, as well as county boards of ed, boards of supervisors. I was really involved in trying to find a legal-ish solution to the real mob scene that we saw in city councils right after October 7th. We all saw all the hate that was being spewed and the recognition of these pro-Hamas supporters with the official mic of the city or county and sometimes in the state legislature. And lots of times these situations were really just very contentious and name calling, and none of us win in the oppression Olympics. So I was really involved in trying to pass a resolution, which we did successfully, to articulate that this was outside of the legal jurisdiction. This was outside of the bounds of what city councils should be focusing on. And when I hooked up with IFAT and the larger Protect Your Cities movement with Deckel and Ariel and all of those who are involved, one of the messages that the folks here in California conveyed was that we really can't defeat this by simply trying to articulate our point because neither side is really listening to each other. And what we need to do instead is to put reasonable limitations of where this type of speech is legally allowed and what is within the role of a city council.
Amazing. And was that
And
in any way, shape, or form relevant to your experience in the Senate, or was it like a different
okay.
context?
So getting to the Senate was really quite a different thing. So in terms of city council, for those of you who haven't been involved, it's really important to know that anybody can show up and speak at your local city council, and you do not need to be a lawyer and you do not need to be invited. Of course, you should follow all the rules of decorum and all the other rules, but it's something that's very accessible to everyone. The Senate, I had done some research. So for years, this is really the Senate. I told my kids that, who made fun of me, of course, that it was a little bit like, an Olympian is like training for a sprint for 4 years, and then there's like a 30-second race. So what everyone saw on TV was like the 30-second race, but it was a 2-year project to get there. And so it was a lot of research that I had done on this specific issue. And then more than a year ago, I filed a legal complaint with the Department of Justice. And then after that, I actually got connections by one of our friends who's on this call. And I literally just knocked on doors and worked my way up on congressional staffers until I got somebody that was really willing to listen. And then from there, worked my way up the chain until I got into the ears of Senator Hawley. And that is how I got to the Senate.
Amazing, amazing work. When I saw the video the first time, I cried. It was
Thank
so
you.
impressive. Will you share it with us so
Sure.
everyone can
So
see?
before I flip my screen, I don't know how many of you have seen it, and I thought maybe I could offer just like a little context about what the hearing is about. So
Please do.
I'll play most of my opening statement, but I just wanted to frame sort of the larger issue that was before the Senate Judiciary. Um, this particular hearing had to do with Afghan vetting. So when the United States withdrew from Afghanistan, there was an effort to help our Afghan allies who had served as interpreters and other really critical service roles for U.S. service members in Afghanistan. And so I just want to say right off the bat, I mentioned I'm a 15-year immigration attorney. I very much support giving Afghan, those who helped our troops, allowing them to come to the United States through lawful means and proper screening and security checks. And what happened in this hearing was that it was very politicized, and those that had concerns about security were framed as if we were anti-Muslim, anti-Afghan, and anti-immigrant. And of course, none of those things are true, at least I can say for myself personally. And my particular testimony related to the Council on American-Islamic Relations and their role in this resettling of Afghan asylum seekers. So maybe I'll leave it there and then I can answer or give some more color to it after the fact. Okay, so I need to first share my screen. Is that right?
Yeah, and I will allow. You have to
Okay.
like do like a request.
Okay, so I'm going to
Just
do
for
this one first. You guys all see me
yeah,
about to talk. Okay, so I'm going to
yes.
let it play for about 4 minutes and then we'll talk. Security threat. In 2022, the federal administration distributed hundreds of millions of dollars to the states to provide Afghan parolees with immigration legal services. The asylum process vets applicants for terrorist affiliations. Ethical attorneys strengthen the vetting process. Unethical attorneys create vulnerabilities. So where did the Afghan legal service funding go? The answer is haunting. In too many cases, our tax dollars flowed to terrorist affiliates. Let me say this clearly. Federal money went to the Council on American-Islamic Relations, or CAIR. That's right. We paid an organization with a 30-year association with terrorism to screen parolees for terrorism. CAIR masquerades as a Muslim civil rights group, but that's not true. The explicit purpose of CAIR's creation was to advance Hamas's agenda in America. This is not my opinion. It is not hyperbole. In 1993, the FBI wiretapped the meeting where CAIR was created. This is a matter of public judicial record. In the 2008 Holy Land Foundation trial, the largest terror financing case in US history, CAIR was named as an unindicted co-conspirator. When CAIR tried to appeal that designation, a federal judge found that the government had produced ample evidence to establish CAIR's association with Hamas. After the October 7th, 2023 terrorist attacks in Israel, CAIR's leadership rushed to support Hamas. The current national executive director of CAIR, Nihad Awad, the same person that was at the wiretapped Philadelphia meeting back in 1993, expressed his happiness to see October 7th. Texas and Florida have recently designated CAIR as a terrorist organization. The structure of the Afghan funding obscured transparency. Federal dollars flowed from the federal government to the states and then to nonprofits. This structure makes it difficult to track funds. But here's what we do know. CAIR took over 90% of the money allocated to California for Afghan legal services. In total, CAIR California received more than $15 million of federal money. With all of this money, CAIR California helped fewer than half of the asylum applicants that they promised to assist. So either they were very inefficient with federal resources, or that money got routed to other, even more nefarious purposes. CAIR received $1 million for Afghan immigration services from the state of Washington. CAIR Oklahoma, CAIR Florida, and CAIR Texas also all provided asylum immigration legal services for arriving Afghans. In its application for funding, CAIR California effectively touted its ability to coach clients around being scrutinized for terrorism. I was an immigration attorney for 15 years. I have taught immigration law. How attorneys prepare clients in asylum cases can be determinative. Outsourcing a core national security screening function to an organization with documented extremist associations represents a systemic failure that needs federal oversight. Thank you for your time.
Oh.
I look forward to your questions.
Okay, I think I did it tech-wise. Okay. Oh, so kind, so kind. Thank you. Okay, so I feel like I would like to try to expand why this is important, like in a bigger picture to all of us. So first, I'm going to assume that most people already know who CAIR is, but I'm just going to go over a super quick background. So the Council on American-Islamic Relations purports to be the largest Muslim civil rights organization in the United States. But it, as I said in my testimony, has a 30-year connection to Hamas. So it was actually founded in 1994, but it was created as an outgrowth of the Muslim Brotherhood in the United States. In 1993, the Muslim Brotherhood in the United States had a meeting in Philadelphia. It was supposed to be a secret meeting, except for that the FBI had obtained a lawful wiretap and was listening in on the whole meeting. And in this meeting, they talk about how they need to, first of all, the entire purpose of the meeting is to stop the Oslo Accords, that the whole Muslim Brotherhood is trying to stop the peace process. And they have 3 branches already in the United States. One is the Holy Land Foundation that raises money and sends it to Hamas. Holy Land Foundation later goes on to get caught, and there's 5 members. The top members are prosecuted. It is the largest terror financing case in U.S. history. Then they're in this 3-prong approach. Then there is a research arm and a PR arm. That's the structure that the Muslim Brotherhood had set up in America. And there's this whole discussion, and you can read the whole transcript because, again, as I said, it's all federal public record, where they say war is deception, and we need to present ourselves as a legitimate civil rights organization that gains legitimacy within the government and social circles and look like we are one thing while we're really out there furthering the agenda of Hamas. And what comes out of this meeting, and as I said, the national executive director, the current national executive director of CAIR, was at that 1993 meeting, and he says, the problem is that we can create a bunch of new organizations and create all these shell companies and etc., but we're all going to be the same people, and then they're going to know who we are.
And in fact, that's exactly what happened because he then becomes the national executive director of CAIR. And so a year later, after this meeting, CAIR is founded. And here we are, we fast forward 30 years later, and they have very much effectively done what they set out to do, which is to legitimize themselves in the eyes of the press, the government, and you know, most Americans don't understand. And so when you attack or criticize CAIR, you're immediately called Islamophobic, anti-Muslim, anti-Palestinian, and anti-immigrant in this case. And yet, really, they are not representing the interests of the Muslim American community. They are spending all of their time radicalizing Muslim Americans and American institutions against Israel and against Jews. I can keep going if I, but if you want to ask me a question or tell
I
me
just
how
want to,
I
I
can
just, I'm just reminded of something that someone told me, that even Jewish organization worked with them at some point because they were so well hidden in plain sight, right?
Exactly. Hidden in plain sight is exactly right. And the reason that I focused on this particular funding is because money conveys legitimacy. So here you have this organization is being funded by the US federal government indirectly, right? There was some cat and mouse going on that they were able to get this, but directly from multiple state governments in the United States. I live in California. There are 4 counties separate from the state that I know of that are directly funding CAIR. All of the major philanthropic institutions, many of which have Jewish leadership, many of which purport themselves to represent Jewish causes, are still supporting CAIR or supporting CAIR's parent organization, which is the Tides Foundation, and inadvertently furthering the propaganda and the radicalization that we all see.
That's insane. So one of the most touching aspect of your testimony for me was that the person in front of you, he was actually listening. Like there was, I mean, it's not the first time that we see someone from our side making a lot of sense and being logical and reasonable, but of course you did it on a very high level. But also the other person was actually listening and asking questions, and it didn't feel like it just came out of one ear and went to the other. Do you know what I mean? So that felt exceptional. How do you explain that that was the situation?
So I'm not sure if you're referring to the senators or the panel, my other panelists that were next to me. But I
The
will say that
senator,
on
yeah.
the senator,
Yeah.
the senator. Okay, so I would actually love to answer both of those. So the panelists that were next to me, I was surrounded on each side, there were 2 Afghan vets around me. And one was a former colonel in the US Army, and one was an Afghan who lawfully helped US troops in Afghanistan and then became a US citizen, went on to serve in the US Army. And I would say that I actually think that they too were both listening to what I was saying and absorbing and hopefully, at least I think, agreeing with me, because this is not about being anti-Afghan, anti-immigrant, right? And it's not, these are folks who were on the ground fighting terrorists, right? They were there fighting the Taliban. They were there fighting Al-Qaeda and ISIS. They're not pro-terrorism. And that was the entire point of my testimony, is that we cannot ask a pro-terrorist organization to help us vet for terrorism. But in terms of the senators, I would say that it was very political and quite challenging. So there, I don't think in that every time I have an opportunity, I want to try to say that this shouldn't be a partisan issue, right? National security shouldn't be partisan. Governmental oversight shouldn't be partisan. Nonprofit accountability shouldn't be partisan. And yet it was. And so it was very divided. As I've mentioned, I am from California, and Senator Padilla
is the senator from California and was the ranking Democrat on the committee. And I tried very, very hard to engage him because I would really like to see immediate oversight of this in California, right? California, in addition to the federal money, gives about $11 million of state money to CAIR of California. So it is a huge amount of taxpayer resources and legitimization. And he didn't engage with me. So it is a project that I am still working on to bring this back. You know, I was able to get to Washington, and then ironically, I need to come back and get it to Sacramento, our state capital, and get that. You know, there is a will in certain parts of the country. We know that Florida and Texas have declared CAIR a terrorist organization, and that their state attorneys general, are working on litigation against CAIR. But there's also a lot of resistance, as I said from the beginning, because CAIR has obtained so much legitimacy in so many circles. And as California politics are dominated, you know, by progressive left-wing politics, it's much harder to get this issue through here.
Yeah, but I love this idea of going outside of your state in order to get result within your state. It's kind of like what we're trying to do in another country, and I think that this is becoming a strategy that we're learning that we need to use it sometimes. So
Yeah.
would you like to show us the Q&A?
Sure, I can. Let me
Thank
see.
you.
So this Q&A is from Senator Hawley. Senator Hawley is the senator from Missouri. I'm assuming there's a lot of Americans on this call, but I know there's a lot of other folks from other places. So just to say that Missouri and California are very far apart, you know, I mean, this is a great distance apart. And also to say that I was always honest with Senator Hawley and his staff about who I am, and quite frankly, with the panel, when I introduced myself, my resume is what, you know, my beliefs. I don't agree with absolutely everything that every senator who could see my point believes. And I think it's important to remember that governing is supposed to be about compromise. We don't have to agree on every single thing that every single politician states to find common ground and further a particular issue. And I think that's particularly problematic in our community, in the Jewish community, in left-wing circles, that, you know, I don't agree with Senator Hawley's position on abortion or LGBT rights, therefore I can't work with him on security issues. I don't feel that way at all. I have so much respect for Senator Hawley, and I think he did a tremendous service for all of us to bring this issue forward. Okay, so let me see if I can do it. I think I might have to ask to share again. Maybe not. Let me see what I can do. Are you guys seeing my screen?
Yes.
Okay, let me see if I can make it bigger. There we go.
Has ties to terrorism. Explain why that is.
It's not my opinion. They were an unindicted co-conspirator in the 2008 Holy Land Foundation. And in that trial, the wiretap from the 1993 meeting in which CAIR was founded was brought into the federal public record. In that meeting, they specifically state that they are going to present themselves as a legitimate civil rights organization while furthering the mission of Hamas.
So you have an American court proceeding that finds that this entity has direct ties to Hamas, may be part of a Hamas funding network, but yet they're getting money. How much money did they get from the federal government to shepherd Afghan parolees?
It's very hard to track the funding because some state fiscal oversight portals show it more clearly than others. I can say with certainty that in California, they received $15 million. In the state of Washington, they received more than $1 million. And I can say also that an affiliate of CAIR, which is called ICNA, the Islamic Center for North America, which has its own documented ties to extremism and terrorism, was also subgranted $1 million.
$15 million in one state, millions in other states going to this entity. Did you say that following October 7th, the leaders of CAIR celebrated the Hamas attacks, or did they condemn it? Which was it?
Multiple leaders are on public record celebrating the Hamas attacks. The National Executive Director, the CEO of CAIR California, and the Executive Director of San Francisco CAIR all publicly celebrated October 7th.
So you've got an organization that was founded in conjunction with Hamas that a federal court has found is linked to the funding network that is somehow getting millions and millions of taxpayer dollars to help Afghan parolees, supposedly to make sure that they're not associated with terrorism. This group's associated with terrorism. Now, when I look at the federal databases to see if there's any reference to CAIR, I don't see anything. Why is that? How have they hid the fact they've gotten so much money?
That's correct, Senator, because the money went from Health and Human Services to the states and from the states to nonprofits. In fact, nonprofits could then subgrant further. So the money did not go directly from the federal government to CAIR, but rather an intermediary, and that is how they've hidden the money.
It's like a dark money network. Tell me this. Is there any reason to believe that any of the representations that CAIR made to the states were false, or did they use false names? Did they use false front organizations? I mean, what do we know?
Absolutely. So in California, the contract between CAIR and the state of California for $7.2 million is in the name of CAIR of Greater Los Angeles. CAIR of Greater LA is not a legal entity. It does not have a federal EIN. It does not file a 990. CAIR of California is a legal entity. But since CAIR of Greater Los Angeles isn't an entity, there is no way to track that $7.2 million.
There's the cash out. So in other words, because the money was given to a non-legal entity, we can't follow it. Now, I thought you said just a moment ago in your testimony that fewer than half of the Afghans that CAIR said they would help have actually been provided assistance. So that is fewer than half of the number they submitted. So where's the rest of the money gone?
Well, in California, CAIR is involved in an all-of-society political activism approach. They have paid activists in city councils, in school boards, lobbied in the state legislature to further their extremist agenda. I cannot say with certainty that that's where the federal dollars went, but I can say that on the ground, we see the political radicalization from CAIR in every aspect of California civic life.
Were they involved in any way in anti-Israel, anti-Jewish protests after October 7th that we saw all over the country?
Absolutely. CAIR's leadership was present at the universities of California and the Cal State campuses, and in fact, gave sermons and speeches on those campuses.
So for all we know, the money could have gone there. I mean, my point is, and thank you for your indulgence, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, let's see if I can get that to stop.
This is a scandal.
I am always happy to talk to everybody. As I think we said in the beginning of this call, there was somebody on here that I'm going to talk to in the next couple of days. We never know how the connections are related. So even if you have an idea or you have something that you're working on, it may not be something that I can take on personally or that is directly related to what I'm doing. But, you know, over this last couple of years, I have gotten to know lots of folks, and I'm always happy to be connected and to connect other people. So certainly you can reach out. My email is on the website, but it's julie@evolveadvocacyconsulting.com.
Amazing, amazing. Anything else before we close the conversation that you would like to add?
Yes, I do have something I want to say, which is speaking about the public and let's spread the positive things. There is a tendency within advocacy circles and Jewish circles that when they come after us to spread their attacks on us, let's not spread that, right? Because we're helping them. We help their algorithm. We give it fire, right? So it is very human nature, but it creates panic amongst the advocates. It reduces people's willingness to come forward. And again, like, we just don't want to be helping their side. So let's spread the YouTube of Hawley and I going back and forth. Spread the stuff that we want out rather than their negativity.
I couldn't agree more. This is so important and so true. such a big part of our feed is just things that help the other side. So thank you so much for this. It's really so true. I'm so glad that you mentioned it. I'm gonna close the recording now. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for having